Star Wars is my favourite film franchise of all time. I've grown up watching all the movies and TV shows, and the original Star Wars trilogy is regarded by many to be one of the greatest movie trilogies of all time. Everything about these movies, the characters, the story, the revolutionary visual effects. These movies revolutionized the way filmmakers and general moviegoers alike perceive cinema today, and for more than 30 years, all three of these movies have been dubbed long-time classics. However, as you've already figured out, most likely anyway, we are not here to talk about the original trilogy. Oh no, we are here to talk about the saga's first anthology movie, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. When I first heard that Disney were going to make a Star Wars anthology movie based on how the Rebels acquired the Death Star plans that are used to destroy the Death Star in A New Hope, I was extremely psyched. The idea of a movie like this sounded like pure genius, an actual war film set in Star Wars. That just sounds insane to me, but in a good way. The idea alone is the perfect ingredient for a truly great Star Wars movie, but not only that, a fantastic war film. So Rogue One, A Star Wars Story is the first in a long series of anthology films set in the Star Wars universe that are going to be side stories that take place in between the different trilogies. While the trilogies will continue to tell the stories of the characters we all know and love, these anthology films will act as small side stories in this absolutely huge universe. When the first teaser trailer for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story was dropped online on April 7, 2016, every single Star Wars fan saw that and collectively said, "Holy crap." The visuals looked insane, it was intense, and it really did feel like a war film. Each trailer that followed seemed to get better than the last and further built up the anticipation for the first in a long series of Star Wars anthology movies. When Rogue One, A Star Wars Story was finally released in theaters on the 13th of December 2016, an old friend of my dad took me and my younger brother to see the movie while I was on holiday in Botswana, the place of my birth and where I spent 11 years of my life living. So after having viewed Rogue One 5 times already, I can still say that I really enjoy this movie. It's visually stunning, the action is intense, realistic and thrilling, the performances from each and every one of the cast are fantastic. So to put it short, I really like Rogue One as a movie. That being said, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story is by no stretch a great movie. Yes, it has great performances. Yes, it has great action. Yes, it's visually stunning. Yes, K2SO is hilarious. Yes, it has an incredible third act. And yes, Darth Vader has 2 incredible scenes in this movie, and it is certainly worth multiple rewatches. But, unfortunately, Rogue One forgets the most important thing about Star Wars. The main reason we all go back to see these movies, other than the story, visuals, or action. Something that people can relate to in quite a few ways. And that, my friends, is the characters. You see, in my experience watching all these movies, it's not just the insane visuals, or the thrilling action sequences, or the story that keeps fans coming back for more. For me, all of that only takes up a third of why I love Star Wars. It's the characters that inhabit these movies that always keep us coming back for more. Take a look at Darth Vader, for example, one of cinema's greatest villains of all time. When viewers are first introduced to this character in A New Hope, you see him as this scary, menacing, and enforcing presence on screen. And just from the first shot of him walking through those burned doors into a hallway of dead rebel soldiers and stormtroopers standing guard at his side, you can tell that this is a guy who knows his stuff. However, it's over the course of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that we learn more of this character's backstory and who he was before he became the galaxy's scariest Sith Lord. When I first saw that iconic scene in Empire Strikes Back where Darth Vader tells Luke Skywalker that he is in fact his father, I quite literally pooped my pants. It caught me completely off guard. And when this is further explored in the following movie Return of the Jedi, you start to feel sorry for this character because you learn what he had to go through, and all the relationships he had with characters like Obi-Wan before he becomes Darth Vader. Over the course of these movies, Darth Vader goes from one of the scariest and most intimidating villains ever put to screen, to one of the most sympathetic villains of all time. It's actually characters like Darth Vader that make me realize how unnecessary the prequel trilogy was as a whole. Why do we need to see Anakin Skywalker's transformation into Darth Vader over the course of 3 films, when we already know what happened? But that's not the point I'm trying to make here, guys, because that's another video entirely. The problem with Rogue One is that there is not a single character in this movie that I could relate to or even connect with. They're all just people that nobody knows that are just put on screen so they have someone to steal the Death Star plans. I know that is a weird way of putting it, but that is really what watching these characters on screen feels like. Jin Erso, who is played by Felicity Jones in this movie, is the only one out of all these characters that gets any kind of backstory. We learn that she is the daughter of Galen Erso, the creator of the Death Star, and that she joined the rebellion in order to save her father. But even then, we don't get much from her, and she is supposed to be the main character. Strangely enough, her best scene in this movie just so happens to be the one scene where she has absolutely nothing to say. There's a scene in this movie where she is reacting to a holographic message from her father. The scene is incredibly well acted by both Mads Mikkelsen and Felicity Jones. In fact, she steals the show in this scene, and the scene itself is really powerful. But the rest of the time, Jin Erso can be seen as an incredibly bland presence on screen, and that has nothing to do with Felicity Jones' performance. It's just that aside from the opening of this movie and her motivations, she gets virtually no character development beyond that. For example, when she's found by Saw Gerrera as a child at the end of the opening scene of this movie, the film cuts to a shot of her as an adult in an Imperial prison. What happened between when she was found as a child by Saw and when you see her in an Imperial prison? Aside from a couple of lines of dialogue, we never find out, and as for the other characters in this movie, they get pretty much the same treatment, only difference, not a single one of the other characters in this movie has any form of backstory. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Diego Luna's character Cassian Andor, who is a main character in this movie, gets nothing. Aside from one small outburst, we learn virtually nothing about this character other than his name. Yes, we learn that he is a rebel spy who is not always proud of what he does, but still, other than that, nothing. There are a lot of scenes in this movie where other characters would tell us the names of these characters, or scenes where the characters introduce themselves, and basically tell the other characters what they do in small and slightly pointless exposition scenes. But in those scenes, you only learn their names, and that's all you're gonna get. Chira Emwe, played by Donnie Yen, and Baze Malbus, played by Jiang Wen, are easily without a doubt my favourite characters in this entire film. The friendship between these two characters was really touching and by far the most interesting part of this movie when it came to characterization. But even here, there is a severe lack of backstory. There is an entire story about these two characters just waiting to be told that we just did not get. You don't even learn why they're just such good friends, or how that bond between them was even formed. Riz Ahmed's character, Bodhi Rook, is an Imperial pilot who defects from the Empire in order to fight with the Rebellion. Question is, why? In the movie, it's explained that it was Galen Erso who encourages him to defect from the Empire. But that explains basically nothing, because the movie gives us no reason as to why he would risk his life getting hunted down and killed for that. It just doesn't make sense because it's never explained properly, and it's never really delved into in the movie at all. K2SO is undeniably hilarious in this movie, and incredibly badass, and Alan Tudyk plays him like a charm. But once again, the only thing we learn about him is his name, why he's there, and the only bit of backstory we get for this character is that he's a reprogrammed Imperial droid who says whatever the hell he wants. That's about it. This lack of characterization is actually the one thing that creates a fatal flaw in the film's incredible finale. When these characters are all killed off one by one, you don't feel much. When Kylo Ren killed Han Solo in The Force Awakens, I felt something. I felt shocked and heartbroken because I had grown to love that character ever since he was first introduced in that incredible cantina scene. And his characterization was so well realized in all the films he appeared in. But when the characters in Rogue One all died, I didn't feel anything closely resembling what I felt when Han Solo died in Episode 7, except for maybe Chirrut or Baze. These characters are definitely enjoyable whenever they're on screen, but that's mostly due to fantastic performances from each and every one of the cast, and they do come off as likable and funny because of that. But the sad truth is that good acting doesn't make good characters. Are these characters enjoyable? Yeah, certainly. Underdeveloped? Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, Saw Gerrera, who is played by Forrest Whitaker, unless you've watched the Clone Wars TV show, you are not going to know who this character is at all. That is the level of characterization in this movie. And I'm going to be completely honest here, it's actually kinda sad to see a movie with such underdeveloped characters in a franchise that is renowned for introducing some truly iconic and amazing characters. I could go on, I really could. There are other problems with this movie that I could easily talk about here, like the incredibly meandering first act, the weird tentacle monster scene that everybody hates, all the incredible shots from the trailers that were cut from the movie, or the terrible CGI recreations of Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher. But for me, those are issues that I had with the film that didn't bother me as much as the way the characters in this movie are handled. And I would rather talk about this issue more than the other ones because it's the most noticeable and surprising issue about Rogue One. You'd think that the characters would be one of the things that this movie would absolutely nail perfectly, but actually I would easily say that they are the weakest element in this film. And it gets worse every time I rewatch the movie. I know this is starting to come off like I really don't like this movie. I said at the beginning of this video that I still really enjoy Rogue One as a movie. It is certainly a lot of fun. But that's the thing. You see, the problem with Rogue One is that the characters are so underdeveloped that you're not as enthralled or captivated as you would be watching A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi, or even The Force Awakens. Rogue One could have been so much better than it was, particularly in its characterization. I do recognise that this isn't entirely the director's fault, as he did a fantastic job directing the movie, and I do also know that this film underwent extensive reshoots and production hell. And I'm going to be honest, as lacking as the characterization is here, the fact that the movie is as good as it really is, to me, is actually astonishing. At the very least, we have a good movie. But once again, it could have been so much better, and the sad truth is that there is not a single character in Rogue One that enthralled or captivated me, and that, my friends, is the problem with Rogue One.